All right, we have got the betting markets up for those who like to make money and bet on these types of things. But first, I would love to know from you in the comments, who do you think is going to win the 2028 Republican presidential nomination and why? I'd love to hear the reason behind that. And secondly, if you're a Republican, I want to know who you're rooting for to get the nomination. So let me know if you're rooting for Ramaswamy and why. And then on the other side of that, if you're a Democrat, are you rooting for DeSantis? Are you rooting for Donald Trump Jr.? Who are you rooting for in that competitive and strategic outlook on the 2028 race? I would love to know. Also, keep in mind and keep on the lookout for a 2028 video on the Democratic side, doing the Republican side first. And let's jump right into this one. So, markets haven't shifted a ton. What has been the main story is right here, Mr. J.D. Vance, of course, the vice president now, and the most likely person to get the nomination, according to the betting markets. And it's been a pretty extreme betting market kind of landslide towards Vance. As you can see here, you got Gabbard in second. Trump at 3 is extremely confusing. I don't see it legally happening or being possible to happen. So I'm even wondering why 9% is here on Kalshi, where you can bet on politics. I think we can kind of start to throw that out. I don't see it being a real thing. Comment if you think Trump's actually going to get a chance to run. I don't. Marco Rubio, our Secretary of State, at 7%. Glenn Youngkin at 6%. The governor of Virginia. Glenn Youngkin, that's a real interesting one. The reason is Youngkin is the governor of Virginia, which isn't really a swing state, but is a state that used to be a swing state. That might be a future video. And if he could carry that in its 13 electoral votes, that would make the map extremely difficult for Democrats. Now, the thinking is that Youngkin, who was reelected there, or who was elected there in 2021, should be able to win the state in a presidential election. He's term limited in Virginia, so they're going to be having a new governor's race coming up soon. But he's very popular there, very well liked, and I think he could end up winning that state in a presidential election. But I just am skeptical of his chances in this field to even get the nomination. But he's interesting from that perspective. Now, of course, just because you're governor of a state doesn't mean anything, right? I mean, we saw in 2012, Mitt Romney was the governor of Massachusetts and lost that state convincingly to Obama. So it doesn't necessarily matter, but I think it would make Virginia a whole lot interesting. And then with Virginia, I mean, it'd be like the Republicans losing South Carolina or something, just like not necessarily a stronghold state, but a state that usually goes red. It would really mess up the map for Democrats if Youngkin was able to pull in Virginia. Donald Trump Jr., I'm a little bit skeptical that he would even run. I think that Vance is going to run. I think the vice president. And I think there's a lot of respect there, at least for now. I mean, we saw Pence and Trump turn on each other. But I think Vance for now, here's my bold prediction. I don't see an election where Trump Jr. and Vance run. They're both still young. We just saw Biden and Trump get elected, both in their late 70s, early 80s, being president. Vance is, I think, just now 40. Donald Trump Jr. is in his 40s or 50s. I could see them holding out and waiting for another time and letting another one take a turn. For now, I just don't see them both going. I think it'd be too combative for what's happened and how Vance has been accepted by the Trump family, how he's kind of gotten in there now and being the vice president. But we've seen the Trumps and just presidential elections do crazier things than that, so he could be there. 6% seems a little rich for me. Ron DeSantis is a guy that stock has just really fallen over the years. If you asked me in 2021 or 2022 who I thought would be running for president on the Republican ticket in 2024, I would have said DeSantis in some shape or form. Either president is what I probably would feel most strongly about, or at least vice president. I think it's crazy how much his stock has fallen and literally at 5%. To imagine it being half of Tulsi Gabbard is pretty crazy. Now, again, we're 3.5 years out, but it is interesting to look at these trends, and I don't see, unless something drastic changes, DeSantis really being a guy that has a chance. I could see him not even running in 2028. Nikki Haley, I have a bold prediction. I could see Nikki Haley becoming a Democrat in the next couple of years. I think she's a different type of Republican than what the sort of conservative Trumpism movement is right now, and I could see her going to the left or going moderate. I don't think she has a chance in 2028. I just think the party is in such a different place right now to be able to elect someone like Nikki Haley. Although she was extremely popular this last run, I just think she's so much different than these other candidates here. Vivek Ramaswamy, someone else who, for me, their stock has kind of dropped quickly. We'll see what happens in Ohio if he's going to be running for some type of governor or Senate seat there. We'll keep an eye on that, like what officially is going to go down and happen there. Ramaswamy at 3% seems a lot lower than what you would have thought maybe a year ago. I think he will definitely run in 2028, especially if he gets something going in Ohio at the statewide level. And I think he could have a real shot, but right now the odds aren't looking great. Greg Abbott from Texas, I think he could have an outside shot. I think he's a little bit of like the rights Gavin Newsom, governs this big bleeding red state in Texas, which I made a video about if Texas is ever going to become a swing state, which I'll link in the description if you want to check out. Greg Abbott, I think I could see him running. I think it's time. I think he's ready. He's had a couple of successful re-elections in Texas. He's been governor there a long time, and I think he's going to have a legitimate chance if he did run. I think he's a very interesting candidate. Some of these down here, like a Byron Donalds, I think he wants to do more in Florida first to get some kind of more experience under his belt. I think he's still young. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, I think, again, still kind of in that young boat. Probably wants to keep going in Arkansas and being the governor there. RFK Jr., a guy that will definitely be in his mid-70s by the time this comes around. I'm wondering if he realistically would kick the tires on running, especially on the Republican ticket, because he still has some extremely left-leaning views on the or just what you would call in the paradigm of left versus right. Not necessarily my opinion, but he believes in stuff like reparations. He believes a lot in the environmental acts and environmental care and just green initiatives in general, which typically aren't aligning with Republican and conservative views. I know he's the HHS right now, focused on health, but when you really get into RFK's views on politics, it's pretty left-leaning. So I would kind of be surprised if he even ran in 2028 as a Republican, but time will tell. Elon Musk, again, this is like Trump, and this is impossible because he's South African native. Matt Gaetz, I think, too controversial, too many scandals for him. Josh Hawley, I think, is another guy that is young, could wait out his turn. Ted Cruz, I feel like if Ted Cruz ran, it'd be like Chris Christie running again. Just sort of like, we're doing this another time. I think people are almost sort of fatigued of Ted Cruz. He's had almost lost his seat in Texas a few years back. He did better this time around in 2024, but has I think in my eyes and just in the public's eyes, lost a little bit of that glamour or that fame that he had, and was kind of buried in 2016, in my opinion, by Trump, and just sort of like insulted off the stage and didn't really have much of a chance or showing. To hit a couple, I mean, Kristi Noem, I think coming from the Department of Homeland Security, I wonder if that would translate. People would really have a chance of voting for her. Mike Pence, I think there's no chance at all. A failed run in 2024 and has moved himself quite away from the Trump base. I don't think that's going to be popular in 2028. And so I think this checks out. If I had a complaint or something that I was questioning, of course, it'd be Trump at 9%, which I think is impossible. Gabbard at 11 seems high. I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments on that with Gabbard. She's a new Republican. Again, a couple of years will go by until this actually happens. Time will tell. But I just don't see her being above Marco Rubio, Glenn Youngkin, or even Ron DeSantis, to be quite honest with you. Now, love to be proved wrong. I think it'd be cool if Tulsi Gabbard ran and how she switched parties. I think that'd be really interesting for like me to talk about and the media to talk about. But Gabbard at 11% and being second in the field by a little bit of a margin here because I don't really count Trump, I think is interesting. Vance here, I think this makes total sense. I think he's running. It's almost a guarantee. Again, the only thing that would make me think maybe he's not running is if Donald Trump Jr. ran. That's just a little bit of opinion. I think just the relationship he has with the Trumps. We'll see. And we'll see if these two can get along the whole time. We saw Pence and Trump not really get along, and Pence kind of put Trump on blast, so to speak, after that 4 years they served together. I wanted to take a look at some other polls outside of the betting markets. Although I think betting markets are more accurate. But here's a national average from April 2025 in this race to the White House poll. And Kristi Noem is high. Robert Kennedy is high. I kind of doubt that a little bit. Nikki Haley again here. I think Rubio being a little bit of a constant, sort of getting 4, 5, 6, 7% is pretty realistic. He could appeal to that Southern and also like Florida and the Hispanic population. I think he could be a very good candidate for the Republicans. Ron DeSantis at 10%. That seems higher than what he usually is. Robert Kennedy, again, seems a little bit rich. Kristi Noem, Nikki Haley. J.D. Vance, though, coming out at nearly 50%. That seems just about right. And I typically, and I'll probably make a video on this at some point about the polls versus the betting markets. I like to trust the betting markets more. And when the betting markets have Vance at 42% and we've got polls coming out with Vance at 49%, that makes me think that the polls are getting more aligned and more accurate. Because I think that when you bet money on something, that's extremely accurate. Like, if we could start betting on the weather, we'd probably predict the weather better. Like, it's not just people throwing around money or throwing around predictions. Like, they're putting actual, like, hard-earned income on this. Like, it matters. It is strategic for them. So I think when polls are matching up with that, we can take a lot from it. I think Vance at 49% seems extremely realistic. I think it's his race to lose for sure. Let's keep looking at one more poll. So we have a collection of polls here. Echelon Insights, The Economist, Echelon Insights again, JL Partners, and Insights again for our last one here. And as you can see, as time has went on, Vance has done really well, especially in Insights. Goes from 39% to 47%. Now, a small amount of likely voters, but this is, again, what we're seeing in the betting markets. Ramaswamy being up here. I tell you what, folks, Trump Jr., in everything I've looked at, has had a lot of steam behind him. I'd love to know your thoughts on this. I just can't imagine seeing the vice president and the former president's son, and by the time we get to 2028, running against each other. I just think that'd be so interesting. DeSantis continues to carry weight. He's still young, still has a big name. RFK Jr. still here. Ramaswamy creeping back in. I think that really this is probably like a 7 to 8 person race, if I had to be completely honest. But what's so important is who's declared, who showed interest, that type of thing. So let's end the video looking at this. When we go to, we're just in the 2028 election page here and going into the Republican Party primary. So in terms of expressed interest, Tulsi Gabbard, our Director of National Intelligence, former Democrat turned Republican, is the only person to apparently explicitly express interest. That was kind of fun to say. Explicitly express interest. In an interview with Megyn Kelly, Gabbard said she'd never rule out a run for president in 2028 and said she was considering it. So boom, she's here, top of the list. I guess only Gabbard's running. And maybe, just maybe, this expressed interest nomenclature is driving this number that I think is a little bit high, and I'd love to know if you guys think is a little bit high. But that's where we are. Speculated by the media. Steve Bannon, I don't really see that happening. I think he's a little too controversial. Abbott, I think we can lock this in that he's running. How old is Abbott? Just want to know. 67. Yeah, okay. So by the time 71, seems sort of young with our elections these days. Brian Kemp, I think, is a good sleeper pick. Huge swing state of Georgia. I think that'd be strategic for the Republicans. Tim Scott, I think he had a lot of momentum in 2024. I'm not sure where it will be in 2028. But these are just speculated by the media. Again, I could see Ted Cruz running. I just don't think he has a chance. I think he'd be 2028's version of Chris Christie. Vance down at the bottom. Interesting. Trump Jr. not here. So I think this is pretty accurate. I don't see him running, but he could. Glenn Youngkin, interesting. These two are interesting for the same reasons, right? Getting these kind of like Georgia swing state for sure. Virginia, borderline swing state. Like, if they could win their states, that'd be very strategic for the Republicans. Now, I know it's the public vote in the caucuses and primaries, but if Republicans were strategizing, like, I might want to have one of these two over Tim Scott, because Tim Scott's from South Carolina. You're probably going to win South Carolina anyway. Just a little opinion looking at this from a high level. But this is, I think, who you are going to expect to see kind of declare or actually be there on a debate stage. I think it's going to be a big debate stage. There's rumors that in 2028 we could have the biggest field ever between the Democrats and Republicans. I think that'd be awesome. It'd be great to break down and cover. But what is this? This is 12 total people right here, a 13th with Gabbard. You can throw out Musk, in my opinion. You can throw out Trump. I don't think it's possible. I think you can throw out Trump Jr. We'll get more information. But this sort of seems like it's the field. Let's go back and see like if we missed anyone here. 1, 2, skipping Trump. 3, 4, 5. Skipping him. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Byron Donalds can be thrown in there. 10, 11. I could see RFK. Don't see this. I see this. Yeah. So I think there's probably like maybe like 9, 10 to 13 names realistically that I could see. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if like Pence ran or Josh Hawley or Tom Cotton or someone that was like a little bit less popular. Just you always have like these big fields. Like I think I remember like in 2016 or 2012, like Mike Huckabee ran, and like it was kind of forgettable, but like he ran. But I think this is probably like a pretty accurate, despite Steve Bannon. Maybe don't count him in our 12. This is probably a pretty accurate, like one of these right here that we're on this page is probably who you're going to see going against AOC or Gavin Newsom or Josh Shapiro in 2028 debate stages in that big general election. I think this paints a pretty good picture. Again, if I had to rank, I'd probably go JD1. I'm higher on Ramaswamy than most people. I could see him 2 or 3. I could really see Abbott up there strong. I think that people align with him. I think having the backing of Texas would be huge. Again, I'd love to know what you guys think. Please subscribe if you love this type of content, if you're into politics like this and election breakdowns. I find it awesome to do all this stuff. So let me know in the comments down below. Like I said, what are you thinking strategy-wise? If you're on the right or the left, who do you want to see out there? Who do you think's beatable? Like, just for example, if I was just throwing out my opinion, I think Tim Scott or Nikki Haley or Kristi Noem is probably more beatable in a general election than Greg Abbott or J.D. Vance. Just saying. Like that, I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments on something like that. Stay tuned. We will be doing a 2028 version. There will be more breakdowns like this. And thank you for watching.